Amazon has just announced that it will be increasing the company's minimum wage. Previously, they were using the federal minimum wage of $7.25 for some of their employees, but they have decided to more than double the pay for these individuals. In fact, about 250,000 of their employees will now be making $15 an hour. And this is because of Bernie Sanders turning up the heat and holding their feet to the fire. And so I love this. Cenk interviewed Bernie earlier about this, so we're gonna go to that interview in just a minute. But first, let me give you the details. Amazon said the change would affect more than 250,000 full and part-time employees, plus more than 100,000 seasonal staff members who work for Amazon over the holiday season. In fact, Jeff Bezos released a statement about this saying, "We listened to our critics," although he didn't mention Bernie Sanders by name, "thought hard about what we wanted to do and decided we want to lead. We're excited about this change and encourage our competitors and other large employers to join us." Now, one of the things that Bernie Sanders was pushing for was legislation that would force major corporations to pay additional taxes if their employees rely on government assistance. Because if they're paying their employees, so little that they're not able to live on that pay, and then they have to rely on government funds, well, what does that mean? That means that us, like we, the US taxpayers, are subsidizing these incredibly successful and wealthy corporations. I love that legislation, and it appears that some executives were concerned about it and so took action.
So, first of all, I also want to congratulate Ro Khanna, who was the first congressperson ever to come out as a Justice Democrat. He did so on this program. He was the House sponsor of this and was an integral part of it. Bernie Sanders went on to thank other progressive groups in the interview that I did with him. We're gonna show you a piece of it, but I want you to watch the whole thing because there was a lot of great information in there. And one of the things that we talked to him about was how the mainstream media had derided this effort by Sanders and Khanna. And we found about at least half a dozen articles talking about, oh, this is so unrealistic. It's never gonna work. Bloomberg called it basically a publicity stunt. And I asked him about that during the interview, but with progressives, always the same thing. It'll never work. Except it did work. It did work. And I would argue, and not Bernie Sanders probably wouldn't make this argument, but I will. This is why you use the bully pulpit. If Obama had done this in his 8 years, he could have gotten so much accomplished. When we first started talking about $15 minimum wage, Obama was talking about $9. He was talking about $9. Threatening employees with employers of raising their taxes. Obama's like, oh, that wouldn't be pro-business. Yeah, well, it depends, doesn't it? If the business is helping the economy and hiring more people, great. If business is keeping wages suppressed and then relying on the government, us, the taxpayers, to pay their bills, well, then you don't have to be, quote unquote, pro-business. But Obama and the establishment Democrats are like, no, our donors, our beloved Chamber of Commerce donors. Remember, we're pro-business, we're pro-business. And they never did anything. And so here it is. It just took one senator and one congressman fighting with other progressive groups that helped. And Senator, I almost called him President Sanders, getting ahead of myself. Anyway, Senator Sanders was very nice in the interview, mentioned that we carried the town hall, and hopefully that made a little bit of a difference when they talked about Amazon and Disney and had their workers up there. But look, it turns out that ragtag group of progressives just moved one of the largest companies in the world, the richest man in the world. They just moved that boulder all the way up the hill. It didn't take that much. It turns out all you gotta do is try. And that's why a lot of the people in the corporate media are like, don't try. If you do, we're gonna humiliate you and embarrass you and deride you, because if you try, it might work. And it did. So now I want to go to the interview for a second here, because it's not just about Amazon. The part, again, that I'm afraid a lot of the media will miss is the consequences that flow from this. And we talked about how a ripple can turn into a wave. And then I want to go to that Bezos quote and then listen to what Senator Sanders had to say. Bezos also said, we're excited about this change and encourage our competitors and other larger employers to join us. And I think that, I don't know that this was the intent, but although you just talked about it and it sounds like it partly was, once they have decided that they're going to up their wages,
it not only is the right thing to do to encourage their competitors to do likewise, but it actually gives them a financial incentive to push other employers to raise their wages.
Absolutely, they will be in a competitive disadvantage if they're paying $15 an hour and competitors are paying 12 or 13 bucks an hour. So it is in their financial advantage to raise the minimum wage. And as you know, last year we introduced legislation for $15 an hour. We got 30 co-sponsors in the Senate, and we look forward to working with Amazon to see that legislation or something similar to it is in fact passed. But bottom line is that Amazon has gone first, and we expect and will do our best to make sure that Walmart, Target, McDonald's, the airline industry follows.
That's him basically saying, you ain't seen nothing yet. We're just getting started. And we talked about this later in the interview. And by the way, if you're watching this later on YouTube or Facebook, the link will be in the description box. The links are always in the description box for the full interview, okay? And please watch it to hear all of what Senator Sanders had to say. But what we talked about was now what they did through this legislation and this pressure was they turned what was an opponent into a huge ally. Because now Amazon, Disney, and all the other companies that have already gotten a $15 minimum wage now have to turn around and pressure all their competitors to get to $15 and have to pressure the whole country to get to $15. See, that is three-dimensional chess. And that's how progressives roll.
I have nothing to add to this other than I love him.
And look, here's the last thing I'll add, guys. Brothers and sisters, go out there and fight. You never know what you're going to win when you go out there and try. So whether it's volunteering for a progressive candidate you like, an uncorrupted one, it's donating, it's volunteering for an organization. You know me, I like Wolfpack, I like Just Democrats, of course. I like beer, I like wolf-pack.com, right? But get out there and get in the game. On Rebel headquarters, we talk to people who've made a giant difference in this world. And there's one key uniting factor. They tried. So go out there and do it. On the go, don't worry, we got you covered. You can still listen to TYT at our new podcast network. Find us on Apple Podcasts, the Google Play Store, or at tyt.com/podcast.